Resource Network. I am Jane, and this is Expansions, where we get to dive into and explore the spiritual dimension of wellness, which just lights me up. So, I'll give everyone a moment to tune in while I settle in myself. It is, I just watched the most amazing sunset. All the clouds were pink, and it made me think about like being a kid and drawing things. Like, I would always draw a house, flowers, a tree, clouds, and sunshine, and like a couple birds, right? That was what I always drew. And I remember thinking back then, the grass must be green, the clouds must be blue, or the clouds must be white, the background must be blue. And tonight I'm looking out at the clouds and, like, no joke, they were pink. The clouds were pinks and purples, and the sky behind it was like an ultraviolet blue. And it just made me remember that the beauty in this world is beyond our own imagination. That even as a child, my imagination was even limited to a normal reality. So I want to kind of dive into that a little bit today. So I want to say hello to Tina, who's joining us on the Facebook, and good evening to my mom, who's joining us from the sunshine state of Indiana. And Marv is here. Marv, I have had you on my mind all day. I'm so happy that you are joining me, for real though. And awesome. Yeah, see, Marv, everybody's happy to see you. Yes, the sky has many color palettes. It really does. And oh, hey, I want to say good evening to the Sarah Catherine joining us in YouTube land. I'm enjoying the YouTube platform. If you all aren't checking out the Promise Resource Network channel on YouTube, I highly encourage you to check it out. I've been trying to share it on the Facebook posts so that you can click on it easily and just subscribe to the channel. That way you can get a notification so you don't have to go through all the Facebook rigmarole if you don't have to, or if you don't want to, or if you know someone that doesn't have Facebook. It's really easy. Also, before I begin, I want to put this reminder out there that if you are interested in calling in to the Warm Line, which, if you haven't heard about the Warm Line, we started this when COVID season began and we went virtual, and it's been, I think, a godsend for many, many people. It's a peer support hotline, Warm Line. You call if you just want to talk to somebody. The number is 833-390-7728. It is a free number. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So please feel free to call it and to share that number. Also, I want to say good evening to Michael, who says that I'm surrounded by colors. I just noticed that myself because I have my cape. I literally have a superhero cape with my logo on it, and it's all rainbows. And I have these amazing earrings from Blue Valkyrie Mala, who makes jewelry, and mostly malas, and amazing tassel earrings. And yeah, and then like all the stuff that I painted. So I'm pulling a card from the wisdom deck that I haven't really pulled out lately because I've forgotten. So while we start to connect here on Expansions, I'm going to light my sage so I can get a little energy clearing for the space. Although, oh dear, it's got like a whole entire flame on there. I'm alive. Hey, I'm curious while I do this, do you all use sage or Palo Santo or anything to clear, smudge, change the air in your space? How do you clear the energy in your own home? This has nothing to do with what I want to talk about, but I'm just really curious. Yes, Sarah Catherine says your earrings are the double rainbow we all need right now. I know, it really is. Hey. So y'all, let us connect. Let us drop in on this Tuesday evening in this now. It may be a totally different now when you tune in and check this out. So, grain of salt, right? Hey, and let me know how the sound is on this, because I hope it's okay. Hopefully it doesn't sound wonky. Let us take a big, full breath together. Inhale. Let it go with a sigh. But for real. Take another big breath in. Fill up your lungs. Feel them expand so big, so broad. Let your belly pop out. And as you let this big, full breath out, your shoulders become heavy. On the next breath in, you start to settle into yourself, into your space, into this now moment, into the remembrance that this is the only thing that's happening. This now. Just this now. Settle into this now, into your breath and into your body. And let's tune in, y'all. Let's talk about some spirituality and pleasure. This is a topic, y'all, and I'm really excited about it. Yeah, Amanda's here. Hey, good evening, Amanda. I'm so happy you're joining us. Yeah, you love sage, candles, open windows. Yes. Tina sharing that she uses incense to help with that flow. Yes. Art flow for show. So check this. I would encourage, if you ever use sage to like smudge your house, please open your windows and doors. And then close them right back. You're good. But if you're going to like sage the whole house, the whole space, open the windows and doors, because it is such a heavy duty cleansing that it would be like if you were sweeping your house and you just swept the broom back and forth, but you didn't really gather all the dust, right? It would just land everywhere else and you would end up making a mess, and it's more of an irritant. So I view it that way, and I've had experiences that I won't share in this now, but they've been really weird. But if you're going to sage, like, please open up your windows and doors. Let that dust, that energy out. Mark says incense and aroma oils. Yes. I want to say hey to Brandy. How are you? I'm so happy you're here. Yes. Amanda mentions to buy ethically sourced sage. Yes. And you can also grow your own. Just a heads up on that one. Sage grows really well here, at least in the South. It grows everywhere. I don't really know that to be true, but in my head, it's extremely accurate. So that's a thing. So here's a question. How many of you all are currently feeling that your life is pleasurable? I don't mean just like, yeah, it's all right, but like legit pleasure. Like, this feels good. I could bathe in this. This is like the luxuriousness of life. This is so good. Anybody feeling that? Or are you feeling quite the opposite? Are you feeling like, nothing's working out. Life is not so good right now. Things are really challenging. Ooh. I'm just curious how you're feeling around the pleasure department, just in life in general. I would like to know as I pull you closer to me. Oh, it's like the camera zooms in. Or Jane pulls the entire setup closer to her with her extremely long arms. You know, it's interesting when I was putting these earrings in. Okay, so I've always had this hair, and you know, it's curly. It's a thing. So I used to put on this wig that I got when, like in the 80s, and it was purple punk rock wig. It was a mullet, and it was like all like flappy here and like fiber optics. And I remember loving that wig because it was straight. It was straight. And I remember like playing with the wig, right? Playing with my doll's hair that had the wigs. I found so much pleasure in that little thing. Totally forget about it, right? Because, you know, I lived my life until I put these earrings in. And then there's this part of me that I'm like, oh God, it feels like I have straight hair. Like, this is like a little sample of what it would feel like if I had straight hair. Like, I just want to pet them and I just want to brush through them. I'm not going to brush through them because I think that would be weird. But I find a lot of pleasure in like really silly things, right? So I'm curious if you're experiencing any kind of pleasure in your life. And if so, where is it showing up? And if you're not experiencing any pleasure, Where is it specifically not showing up? I'm very curious because this is what I want to dive into. Amanda says, I've always struggled with having curly hair too. It's a thing. It's all about the product. Ding. I feel like every 6 months I could tell you I could like sell a whole new curly product line until I get tired of it. So can we just talk about pleasure and spirituality? Because this is not a topic that has ever been related to each other in my upbringing. When I was raised in the Catholic realm of all things in the Midwest, right, in the very German heavy Louisville, Kentucky area, right, where Mass was like it was a commitment. There was never this feeling, sense, conversation, preaching, even after church, around pleasure. For me, it was always, what's wrong? How can you save yourself and basically like not go to hell? And how, this hell place is awful. It's struggle, it's pain, it's suffering, it's all of these things. Pleasure was never talked about in my spiritual, religious upbringing. Was it for you? Was pleasure talked about in your spiritual and or religious upbringing? Like your heart's pleasure, your physical pleasure, right? Your mental pleasure. Was that even a conversation? Like at all between your parents, your preacher, your pastor, anybody in the pulpit? Sarah's like, I always wanted curly hair. Yes. Sarah's sharing that pleasure levels right now are at an all-time low. I feel that from you saying that, sharing that. I feel that from what I've been recently going and growing through. And I've really been witnessing that with others around me, with what they're sharing with me. That it feels like very heavy for a lot of people right now, which also goes with the energy of the season. It's a lot of downward moving energy. Like, I get it, not much daylight, all that fun stuff. So yeah, has pleasure been a topic in your spiritual and or religious upbringing? And if so, like how is it ever talked about? I'm curious because I don't know many religious texts that speak to pleasure. Marv shares about current pleasure. Marv, I'm curious, and I want to read what you're sharing. How is pleasure shared or talked about in your spiritual / religious upbringing when you were young? And right now he says that his pleasure is pleasing those people that I meet. I take pleasure in others' pleasure. Yes, me too. That there's this notion of like being of service that brings me pleasure, which thank God, because otherwise the past 20 years of my life really would have sucked. Tina says, it was never directly addressed, but the atmosphere was definitely a pleasure, at least, as a youth, not so much now. Awesome. So I've talked to people who had experiences like when they went to church that they had a good time, that they enjoyed the singing and the community and the fellowship, right? The communion of the experience, that brought them so much pleasure. So I'm glad that you had that, that the atmosphere held for pleasure. And I find it interesting that it wasn't discussed. Amanda says it was only ever talked about in the form of being pleased with my relationship with my higher power. Ooh, really? Let's see. So I guess that would have been like, was it kind of like you'll only really be happy and feel that pleasure and that divine love and all of that when you connect with your higher power, your source, the universe, the God, the light within, whatever you want to call it. Because I find it so very interesting. And again, this is coming from the Catholic upbringing, and I wasn't really raised tons of Catholic because we stopped going to church when my parents got divorced. So, it was like I got the residual teachings of the Catholicism. Okay, so yeah, she's like, bingo. Okay. So yeah, it wasn't. So did anyone ever grow up or experience like a church or religious atmosphere that was like in complete love, compassion, acceptance, creativity, like those pillars, where pleasure was talked about even more as like from the I perspective? Marv kind of touched on it, about like being in service for sure, which I'm going to be wrapping around to some of that. Tina says, I probably peaked at my spiritual pleasure as a youth. I found my higher power and could honestly feel the connection. And what a pleasurable connection that is it not? Like, seriously, it's amazing. Amanda says, it was never a worldly pleasure, though. Like, it wasn't about physical, right? I feel that. I feel that a lot of the teachings were about this ethereal pleasure, like the pleasure that was spoken about in spiritual terms or in religious terms were about like this outside of you pleasure. Like you'll get pleasure when you are of service to others, right? When you connect with something outside of you, right? Your higher power, source, all that fun stuff. And I think that those are really solid, foundational, dandy old messages. And I want to take that and expand it because we live in a very physical world. We live in a world where there is density. There's a third dimensional density that we are. We are made of, light and sound, and I get that. And we're made of all of the elements, which gives us this physical world that we create in, that we play in, that we manifest in, that we suffer in, that we struggle in. Like we have all of these things in our living experience. And those are the things where, to me, pleasure has been completely void of acknowledgement. Like, let's not even talk about pleasure in the physical world. Because the only time I ever heard it in the physical world were in ways that were negative, right? Like the words around hedonism always came up, oh, hedonism, oh, that's bad, and these images of like naked people and like liquids and fire and alcohol and drugs, and it's all hedonistic and nobody's going to work and the world goes to shit because no one is doing what they're made to do because they're hedonistic. So that's what I literally had this thought of about pleasure, was that pleasure was hedonistic, and hedonistic was excessive. It was too much. It was bad. So then nerd alert here, Jane goes and is like, oh, what's hedonism? Like what is hedonism? Y'all, it's the pursuit of pleasure. Isn't that in like one of the texts for, I don't know, like the Americas, that like we all have the right to pursue pleasure or something like that? So then it started to really recalibrate my mind around this notion and my relationship with pleasure and hedonism. That it is in our nature, literally as a human form on this earth, it is in our nature to pursue pleasure, right? To move to something better, to look for something better, being in acceptance, right? Total contentment, santosha, on the what is now. This is good. This is fine. I'm okay with this now. I am pleased. And I'm excited for more. That tomorrow's going to be a sunny day, right? Tomorrow's going to be better and better and better and better. Because every day I live, I've been learning more. I'm readying more and more and more. So this notion of hedonism and this pursuit of pleasure, when I remembered that is a part of our nature, it shifted the way I started to behave toward myself. So like with little things, from putting in earrings and actually being like, I really like these. I'm just wearing them for pleasure's sake. For my eyes, for the way it feels when it touches my skin, when I reach up and I do this. Right? I want to hear what y'all are saying. Tina says, pursuit of happiness is in the Bill of Rights. Happiness. And happiness is joy. And you can't have pleasure without joy, like, right? Amanda shares, I always felt like and was taught that even treated like physical pleasure I'm not deserving of because I'm supposed to be used for pleasure to others, right? That's the woman's role. Oh, yeah. Thank you for bringing that one to light because hashtag all of us too, especially if you're in a woman body, right? That the only pleasure that we are told that we are made to experience is to be the gift for another human being's pleasure to do with us what they will, which has led to generations of sexual trauma. Huh. Look at that. A lot of traumas come from a lot of Christian upbringing or cults. Not saying they're the same. I'm just saying, like, that's a thing. Like, what? It's truth, though. But yeah, like that is so common, Amanda, that we generationally, humanly have been taught that the only pleasure, like, it's not for me, but it's for my partner, right? To be of service only, which takes the word of altruism that Marv mentioned earlier and puts it to the wind. Like altruism, like doing that, like being like, okay, I'll be the doormat. You do whatever you want to do to me, with me, on me, near me, because it brings you pleasure. That's not being of service. That's being a doormat. There's no pleasure in that. And it's not altruistic because altruism comes from a place of the heart. Like, I'm doing this because it feels good to me to do, period. And it's usually in service for the other living being. Marv says, I never was taught about pleasure, but I learned about after I arrived at PRN and experiencing the first meeting with you. Oh, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I wasn't taught about pleasure either. Like, not really. It wasn't even like, hey, what are you going to do when you grow up? And I would be like, and no one ever said, Jane, you do what feels right in your heart. Whatever you want to do, make sure it feels good. Make sure it feels good to your body. Make sure it feels good in your mind. Luckily I had a parental figure or two that were like, you can do whatever you want to do, and I support you. Or just a parental figure. It varies. Yes, I just want to share what someone is replying with. And since you're not replying to me, I'm just going to share what you're replying with and not your name. Shares that talking to Amanda, like, you're right. I always pleased others, but never thought I needed pleasure, right? Common, check in the box. Tina says many religions center around fear, guilt, shame, and denial of self. It's a control mechanism when the pursuit of real spiritualism is too scary to be left to our own devices. Right? Many religions center themselves around fear, lack, judgment, and stagnation. And those become expressed as feeling guilty and ashamed of even pursuing pleasure, of exploring things that are pleasurable. We explore the alcohol world. Well, now I feel bad because I'm not supposed to do something that feels good. So now I'm going to drink away all the guilt and shame. Oh, look at that. Now I have an addiction to alcohol. Thanks. Or sex, or any kind of drugs, any kind of behavior. So much so, such a beautiful point. Amanda says, today pleasure equals mutuality, authenticity, and transparency. Yes, that is such a new definition to me for pleasure. Like, that is like, I consider the way we've been living as like in different consciousnesses or different paradigms, different thoughts of being that have been really predominant in our cultures. And the paradigm that we're literally moving through, we're like transcending up, we're ascending through the third dimensional paradigm, right? This paradigm thought way of being that's of fear, lack, judgment, and stagnation. So that is starting to become dissolved as we transcend it and live in a paradigm that's loving, compassionate, abundant, unified, authentic, weird, unique, transparent, like for real, honest. And it's in pleasure. There's joy in it. Angie says, absolutely, there's no pleasure in being a doormat. Right? There isn't. But if we're not a doormat, sometimes we feel guilty that we're not being a doormat. And then we beat ourselves up, we'll punish ourselves up on some level because we allowed ourselves to be a doormat because I chose to be a doormat. Then I become a doormat more, and then I punish myself even more. And then we get stuck in this really interesting cycle because we have not even been talked to about how to stand up in the name of your own divine pleasure. There is, to me, this beautiful relationship with divinity, right? With the wholeness, the holiness, the oneness. And it is complete, which means it's going to be joyful and pleasurable and compassionate and giving and nurturing and focused and directed and structured and easy. We get to start to reclaim that. And for me, it starts with one, talking about it, right? Bringing it up into my awareness and then talking about it with others, for sure. But then there's this whole like, how do I do it now? You know, I'm so used to hurting myself. I'm so used to being miserable. I'm so used to being in a negative relationship. I'm so used to that. I don't want that anymore. I want to be happy. I want to be in joy. I want to feel pleasure, but I don't know how to get from point A to point B because no one's acknowledged that I deserve it. So what do? Want to say hey to Roberta, who's joining us. I'm glad you're here. So I talked about on Monday on Body, Mind, Spirit, I talked about dopamine. So check this out. It's all tying in, y'all, because I got to get the sciencey, dorky stuff in because that's just me. So we produce all of these hormones and chemicals in our body, in our brain, that feel good, truly that feel good. We've been taught in our culture to go to the things outside of me for me to feel or create these certain chemicals. So I've been taught to go outside of me, right? Take this drug. Now I make the dopamine. Okay, now I feel good, right? That was the sugar example on Monday. You know, if you think about endocannabinoids, you know, we make them naturally. They make our body feel good and relaxed. We've been taught, you know, that I must have CBD to feel that. The interesting thing is that our bodies naturally make these things. So speaking about the dopamine, right? I want to keep on the dopamine topic for this one because dopamine feels really good. It feels like you did the thing. Like, y'all know that feeling when like you plan a party and it like comes out like perfect. You plan a dinner and it turned out delicious. You know, you had a lesson plan, or you wrote the paper and you ran the race and you went to the finish line and you accomplished the thing. You know, you had a baby, you went to school, you finished your military, you committed to a relationship, whatever that is, that feeling of accomplishment that I did it. There's this like happiness to it and your heart kind of beams forward. And at the same time, you kind of sit back and relax on that. Like, that feels good. That's dopamine. You made your own dopamine because you did the thing. That is something that we're not taught about, right? Because that's, I don't know, we're taught, I guess, you got to be in fear otherwise. And she's like, you're absolutely 100% on target. Yay. And boo, but yay. Mara says, notice the simulation of please and pleasure. Yes. Please you to please me. And I bring pleasure to the both of us. Yes. So this has come up recently for me, Marv, and it all ties in. So I'm glad you shared that. So, and I'll talk more about this because it goes into relationships. Michael and I are actually going to talk about this a lot tomorrow on Love Talks at 5:00. So if you want to set your alarm or calendar thing to tune in, I would encourage that. But this notion of doing to please another, I completely shifted the way I saw Michael recently. And it was all my choice. I chose to see him as the God that he is. You're all gods and goddesses. We all are sourced within in different, like, weirdo human bodies, being our human self. That's my thought. We're all the same, but different. The oneness, I say. We're all from the oneness. Anyway, so the way that I'm now interacting is completely shifted because whatever I'm doing, I'm not like bending over backward. I'm not doing things that are uncomfortable for me so that Michael's happy. I'm not going to work 8,000 hours a week because it makes the boss person happy. But if I love the project and I'm really feeling good about it and I want to see it through and I want to be a part of the winning team, then I'm going to be of service, right? So then there's a sense of accomplishment, not because someone told me to do it, but rather it was this higher calling from deep within myself. And that is one, such a deeper sense of pleasure. Two, it also allows for me to create my own dopamine. So when I go back when I create my own dopamine, then I can go back to the moment that I created that big flood of dopamine in my brain. And I can sit back and reflect on that experience, further creating more dopamine in the now moment. So let's do this real quick. Let's just take a little guided meditation here, okay? So just take a deep breath with me. And let it go. So if you want to close your eyes, relax your eyes, just start to take a deep breath. Feel your breath flowing in and out. Feel your body's weight on the earth. Feel the gravitational pull of the earth beneath you, holding you so steady, so firmly, so rooted. Feel the energy of you, your light, your divinity, your source, your spirit. How light and buoyant that is as the energy of you flows up and down, left and right. You feel it expanding beyond your skin. You feel the energy of the cosmic intelligence flowing down upon you like stardust. And you breathe into this space of stillness and peace, held in this container. In this moment, bring back to your memory a time where you accomplished something. Maybe it was when you crossed that finish line, when you received that diploma, when you had that baby, when you chose to live your life for you, when you got that divorce, when you moved, whatever that accomplishment is. Remember that. Maybe it's that you got out of bed today. Breathe into that remembrance, that memory. Feel what it feels like in this now moment, like it did in the moment that you experienced it first. Let that feeling of, I did it, wash over you. Envision all the eyes, whether they were there in real life or not. Perhaps they were the eyes of your ancestors or your guides or angels or spirit itself, gazing upon you with accolades and acknowledgement. Yes, you did it, they say. They're so proud of you that they shower their energy from their heart directly to you. As you can feel your body relax and you feel your heart beat even more as your dopamine levels rise. You begin to feel that feeling of the accomplishment that only you could have done, whatever that is. Maybe it was the last time you drank, the last time you smoked, whatever that was. You take a breath in. You take a breath out. And you let divine cosmic energy, source itself energy, while you're surrounded here by all of your spirit guides and ancestors. This energy begins to flow to you, activating your natural dopamine receptors and producers so that they work with proper mechanisms so that they activate and produce the dopamine in a rightly, timely, healthy manner. No longer relying upon sources outside of you to feel this dopamine rush as you breathe in and you breathe out. Becoming aware of your body in this now moment, the weight of it on this earth, the inflow and outflow of your breath. You feel your hands and your feet, your connection with this earth and source. You feel the connection with your heart underneath your chest, and the remembrance that you have accomplished so much, more than your memory will ever allow you to witness again. Coming back to this now moment, beginning to open your eyes, remembering in extreme awareness and consciousness that all that you have accomplished can be remembered at any given now you choose, so that you can be flooded and flushed with this dopamine response, that you can feel the pleasure from within for you. And as you flush with this dopamine, your body begins to heal. Your immune system starts to increase because your stress responders go down. So as you become more healthy, more balanced, more calm with this dopamine flush, then you can feel this sense of pleasure from within. Not only that, then we have more energy and desire to be more of service, to bring more pleasure to others around us, to please this earth and all of its inhabitants. To me, this is the conversation around pleasure. Let's breathe in pleasure. Let's be pleasure. Let's remember that we deserve pleasure. We can create it on our own. We are pleasuring beings. We're made to feel good. We're made to enjoy the touch of things upon our skin. We're made to enjoy and find pleasure in food, not just gobbling things up mindlessly, but taking active pleasure in eating. So that every time we eat, we create more dopamine instead of, like what I used to do, shoving the food in, no dopamine. Rather, I would increase my stress responders because I was feeling guilty and ashamed for what and how I was eating. So taking this reality and clearing it out and creating it so that we are hedonistic, not excessive, pleasured beings in a really real physical world as a spiritual being in a human body. So take a big full breath in and just sigh it out. And if anyone would like to share if they experienced anything with that dopamine pleasure meditation, visualization, I would love to know your feedback. I would love to know your experience. True story. I was going to say, I'm just going to sit here and wait. And then I was like, I can't do that. But then I can. But I could just talk about it the whole time about I'll sit here and wait. But no, I really would like to know if you just did that with me. And if you do this on the replay, if you do that meditation on the replay, please, I would encourage you to share your experience, your thoughts, your feelings, comments, questions, anything you got. Because I actually go back and read all the comments that are added after the airing. I may not respond to many or any of them, but I promise you, I read them all. Angie says, yes, we owe it to ourselves to find our pleasure. I need to boost my immune system. My pleasure being here in my shoes, deep breath. Wow, beautiful. Yay! Right? We forget that true pleasure is healthy. It's healing. It is a part of source energy. No one ever said, that when you reach the pearly gates of heaven, that it's going to suck. It was like everything about it was beautiful, perfect. It felt good. It felt good to be in that heaven. We're here to bring heaven on earth. We are here to be the embodiment of source. That's like the fifth dimensional reality we're creating. You get excited about it. Yes, Roberta shares the stuffing food thing I can relate to now. I'll be more mindful of my consumption. Yes, right? It's so true. So true. Food to me is one of the most pleasurable things, and I have mindlessly ignored that, shoved it in until I couldn't handle it anymore, and then wonder why I didn't feel pleased with myself. I remember my taste buds liked it. You know, Hey, Charles, I'm happy you're joining us. Dana's here. Hey, good evening, my dear. I'm happy to see you. Shares, this is empowering to realize that we can do this for ourselves, right? We don't have to. Like, I don't have to go to the sugar bombs for me to feel the dopamine rush. I don't have to, bend over backwards, be the doormat, work 80 hours a week so that I can feel this idea of pleasure. That's not pleasure. I know so many people, y'all, and I'm sure you know someone, if you're not one yourself, who have been waiting to retire their whole life. And then they retire so they can finally be happy and feel the pleasures of life. And they don't know what to do. They don't know how to tap into it. They feel stuck. They feel miserable because they don't know how to be who they are naturally without being this producer, worker bee. I'm a cog in the machine. So we are here, I think, in my opinion, to pause that cog action, to take ourselves out of it, whittle ourselves a new shape of being, and then be in this world with our unique weirdo self and movement. And we find that we will tap into and connect to other newly shaped beings like a newly formed cog system. Where if I'm in pleasure and you're in pleasure and you're in pleasure, and we all get to like hang out together, then we all really amplify our connection, our energy. We get bigger. And when I have more energy, I don't know about y'all, but I want to share it more. Like I want to be more of service. I want to be more of service. Can we all treat each other and ourselves first and foremost, let's be honest. Treat ourselves like we are the God goddess. Can you imagine if God knocked on your door, right? Big old like light energy, or like the universe itself, or like the earth or mother nature, whatever word you got, right? We'll call it Bob. Say Bob knocks on your door. Bob's God. And you open the door and you're like, holy shit, it's God. What? And you're like, here, eat all of this sugar, and then I need you to clean up this house for me, and then if you could go do this, and I need you to work 80 hours a week, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Could you imagine how weird that would be? In my head, God would be like, peace out. you suck. I don't really think that, but in my head, and this now, it kind of came out. But seriously, but we treat ourselves like that. We treat ourselves like that. Do this, do this, do this. And when you get all of this done, then you can feel good. Then you can sit in some pleasure. Then you can take that time to take that bath. Then you can go take that walk around the block. Then you can go outside and be with nature. Nah, dog, nah. Let's reclaim this power. Let's reclaim this body. Let's reclaim the pleasure of being a divine embodiment as a human. Marv shares, receiving a small act of kindness can bring pleasure to most people. I experienced that feeling when I came here from Arizona and stopped to get gas while wearing my Vietnam veteran hat, and the cashier said, welcome home and thank you for your service. Oh, that brought pleasure to me, right? That. Can you imagine? Like, we grew up, most of us, in a society where, I'll feel pleasure if you pay me. Right? Because I've been taught that the only way for me to feel pleasure is through monetary compensation or my pain. Enough of my pain for someone else's pleasure will eventually bring me pleasure, right? If I hurt myself enough for you, then I'll feel good enough. But just that simple act of acknowledging, just acknowledgement for me and others is profound. Because Marv, I mean, when did you move here from Arizona? It's been years now. And that still is resonating within you. Because it's so powerful when someone just acknowledges us in a pleasing way. When we acknowledge ourselves in a pleasing way, like, hey, I survived yesterday, y'all. I accomplished yesterday. Y'all, we all accomplished yesterday. It is done. It's over. It's in the books. Next day is coming up. It's called today. We accomplished yesterday. Can we just breathe that in and give ourselves the acknowledgement of, holy cow, yo, I accomplished yesterday. And if I did and every other human being on this earth that's not a brand new baby have accomplished the day before as well, man, what accolades. Angie says, yes, reclaiming it. I know, right? Roberta says, our parents and teachers taught us that busying yourself and multitasking so you can then deserve a little pleasure, right? Just a little. Just a little. And I think that we forget too, when people act altruistically, right? Like when I gave the example of, Dana says, we internalize the no pain, no gain. We internalize that. We took that as our truth. If I'm not suffering, then then I'm not going anywhere. I must suffer. I must feel bad so that I can go somewhere. That's such a load of poo. It's just BS until we believe it and it becomes the reality we all live in. Roberta says, but as adults, we get to reclaim it and relearn how to reclaim our pleasure senses. Yes. Wow, I accomplished the holidays and yesterday. Thank God, Angie says. Seriously, we all accomplished the holidays, did we not? Seriously. When I think about the example I gave a few moments ago, if I am working 80 hours a week because I'm afraid if I don't, I lose my job. I'm afraid if I don't get the bonus. I'm afraid if I don't, blah, 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 blah. Right? No good. No está bien. Or I love this project. I'm going to work 80 hours a week because I can't not. I'm in super creative mode. I feel the flow. I'm in the flow. I am the flow. Oh my God, this feels so good. I'm loving what I'm producing and what I'm doing. And I'm working. I don't even care how many hours I'm getting, but I'm eating enough. I'm sleeping enough and I'm creating. And oh, it feels so good. I'm in so much pleasure, right? We're giving so much of ourselves, but it's this never ending flow of energy as we're giving this. So we're in pleasure this whole time. So I say that because so often we find ourselves able to extremely give, and we choose to extremely give to those that don't pay us back. Not really, but so say like Marv, sharing his service for the country, hopefully you wanted to do that. That was something that you wanted to do that was like in your heart. It was calling you to do it. And for however long you were in Vietnam, that's days and days and days of doing what you feel is the best thing to do. You're in the flow, you're present, you're there. And then to not give or not receive the accolades and accomplishment and rather get, either shunned for it, right? Why did you work that long? Why were you there? Why did you serve? You blah, 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 blah. Rather taking all that we do, and when it's that from the altruistic, all about pleasure space, and pouring all of that we have into it, we have this infinite well of love, right? If I'm continually just pouring it out, feeling so good and complete the whole time, I'm refilling. I never get tired. So that when the project is over, right? I come home, the marriage ended, whatever. that I still feel good. I still feel connected. So yeah, Marv, you've been here 10 years before Welcome Home Nationally. Wow, I've been here since 2006. Get it? Yeah, Roberta, I don't really speak Spanish. It's really like that was it. Just saying. um, oh, Angie says having COVID-19 and all. What? I accomplished it. Yes, getting better and feeling better. Yes, right. And whether you've had the COVIDicus, and I hate that you have, and I'm really happy that you're here to tell a tale, but like we're all surviving COVIDicus season. We're all surviving pandemic. We all survived. We all accomplished 2020. We all grew, we all learned, we all expanded, we all tried something new. We've accomplished so much. We've accomplished childhood. Y'all, we accomplished childhood. Y'all, we accomplished middle school. If y'all, middle schoolers look silly. If whatever age range that is that you're in middle school, you look goofy and you're supposed to. And we all love you for it because we were all there once too. I remember trying to find the husky boy pants to fit my non-girl shaped body. But we accomplished, we survived it. We survived some really hard stuff, y'all. We've accomplished breakups. We've survived breakups. We've accomplished self-sufficiency, although it may not feel like it, but we are in this now moment more self-sufficient than we give ourselves credit for. Embracing the pleasurable aspects, embracing our senses. God, Roberta, I think it was Roberta mentioned our senses. Someone did. Like we have these senses. Like I get excited when I accomplish taking the time out to take a bath. Literally. I get like, good job, Jane. You took a bath. You took time out instead of just taking a real fast shower, but you took a bath, sister. Good job, you. And then when I'm in the tub, I'm like, wow, this water feels so good on my skin. The smell of the bath oil that I use, man, my nose is so happy. My senses. Like I've been baking apples a lot because I try to not eat that many raw, like cold fruits in the cold months. So I try to eat warm stuff. And apples are so delicious when you bake them. And, so I bake them and then like I run outside real quick to like check the mail and I come back in and just the smell of my home smelling like baked apples with cinnamon. That's pleasure. Can we pause in the pleasure? Instead of always feeling like we must be going and doing to pursue it, to find it outside of me so that I can feel good. But to pause in every sense that you have in pleasure. When you hear the birds, pause, just stop, just listen. When you hear an awesome song, pause, stop, listen, just pause, join, sing along. When you feel a great song come on and your body's like doing this and you're like, you feel it and you're like, I want to dance. But you're like, no, this is weird. No, I don't need to dance. What if somebody saw me just wiggling? F that noise. Be in the pleasure of having a body that's mobile or mobile. I just wanted to say it like that. But like, let your body move to the song. Let your body move. Witness it. Witness your body's movement in pleasure. Don't put judgment in it. When you drink a glass of water, I point to my water that I don't think you can see. When you drink the glass of water, pause. Feel the water in your mouth. Feel the water pouring down into your throat. Sometimes you can feel it going all the way down when it's cold. There are people that don't have access to clean water. Pause in the pleasure that you do. Pause in the pleasure every time you get turn on a light switch. when your heat kicks on or your air conditioner kicks on, when you have the fan blowing overhead, when you have the freedom to start your car up. There's pleasure everywhere. Remembering that will increase these dopamine experiences so that we don't fall back into addictive behaviors. Like if you, like, again, back to yesterday's body, mind, spirit, if you have had or do have a sugar addiction, you'll notice that it starts to wane because you're producing the hormones that had been calling you to the sugar in the first place. It all ties together. Pause in the pleasure, right, Angie? Pause in the pleasure, just pause in it. You live in this body once. That's it. We get this body once. No matter how great you may like it or how much you dislike it, in this now moment, it's perfect exactly how it is. Pause in the pleasure of knowing that and in the knowing that it's ever changing. So if you're not quite pleased with your vessel that you're in, breathe into that and trust that it's changing at every now moment. We are magical creatures made to feel pleasure. And there is pain in life. That is life. We're going through epic shifts in this reality we call now, that we call 2021. There will be many more experiences, social unrest, planetary moves that are going to be like, what just happened? All types of stuff. Big changes up ahead, folks. We can still make it through challenging times and feel pleasure. That's called being a divine source of energy in an egoic third density, right? Ego keeps us alive. Divinity keeps us connected with the oneness. We're here to balance those two things. Why not do it in pleasure? We can. Which brings me to this card that I pulled at the top of the hour. I have not looked at it, so this is the art by Georgie Nakima. Amazing artist. Highly encourage checking her out. This is a wisdom deck by her and Kim Barker. Whoa, check this out. Okay, so the card says self-preservation. Ready for this? It says, you're not broken. You've been broken open. You're being validated for all your work in healing old wounds and patterns. It's imperative that you distance yourself from negativity that drains your life force, as this opening leaves you emotionally vulnerable. Instead of staying behind the protective shield of barrier you created, be bold about declaring your needs and boundaries. When you are approached with gossip, establish that you're not in a place to indulge in venting unless the person is willing to hear your advice and solution. Bottom line, cancel all memberships to drama. Zip up your energy field and call your power back to your core. Stand firmly for what you believe in and hold your values accountable to your actions. You understand that the caterpillar is a humble version of yourself, while still acknowledging that your butterfly form has come too far and will only fly, never to crawl again. Self-preservation. What if self-preservation was reclaiming our pleasure, reclaiming our joy, reclaiming our creative autonomy, reclaiming our weirdness, our gooberness, our strange, unique humanness? What if self-preservation on the humanity species scale actually meant to be your own source of the things like dopamine or serotonin or the things like that? That being out in the sunshine is a part of your self-preservation and your pleasure. That eating foods joyfully and luxuriously and languidly and really just like chewing up that piece of chocolate cake and like getting it all up in your teeth, that is a part of self-preservation. That working yourself to the nubs in the name of someone else's bottom dollar is not self-preservation. That's not pleasure. What's the point? We're here to live a life of joy, even in times of hardship and pain and chaos and struggle. Finding the balance is the work, right? Reclaiming ourselves, that's the work. Remembering that we're here to reclaim ourselves. That's the work. It's all a game of remembering. So as we close up, please, I encourage us all to remember self-preservation comes perhaps in the form of pleasure. Pure, old-fashioned pleasure. Redefine it, reevaluate it, talk about it, explore it, play with it. Play with your senses. See what type of pleasure. Can you find pleasure in breathing? Can you find pleasure in walking? Can you find pleasure in looking at a neighbor that you don't like? Infinite potentials of pleasure, y'all. Let's play with it. Let's play with pleasure. Anyway, it is the time for us to end. I feel like I could just keep hanging out with you all night because I love you all so much. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of this earth reality with me in this now. Thank you for exploring these awesome topics like pleasure. If you want to tune in tomorrow night at 5 for Love Talks with Michael and myself, we're going to kind of expand this topic of pleasure and really talk about how to be with partnership relationships when your partner's in pain, whether that's you or your partner, maybe both at the same time, because that's always a doozy. So continue to take care of yourselves and take care of each other and know how loved you are. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you all on another now. Okay? Bye, y'all. Peace.